Hi again. I'm back to do the last two variations on the Cuddles Zentangle pattern. This one. You can kind of see up here the two variations we've done before. So the next one I'm going to do is this one that we did last was a kind of a tighter, littler version. Now I'm going to do kind of a bigger version of it. In a way bigger. And mix it up a little bit. So let's get our border going here. And again, I haven't done just a basic video yet. If you haven't done Zentangle before, this is just kind of how you start all the Zentangles by drawing this sort of outline. It's not even necessary. I mean, it's a square within a square. I could just do the whole thing within that. But for some reason, it feels more finished if you have this little outline on there. But you just do that with pencil. When you're doing your actual Zentangle, the actual pattern, you do it with pen. So let's start out. I'm going to try to go a couple different directions with this, but the same kind of wavy feel. So we're going to put a wavy line here and another wavy line here. Then I'm going to make a couple, let's see. I don't have any pattern in mind that I'm doing now. I'm just kind of letting it happen. Although I do wish, and I will on the next one, I had these lines a little bit skinnier, so you have more of that sort of undulating feeling going on. But that'll be okay. I'll just really emphasize it in the next one. Let's see, do we want another direction? Let's see, let's see what happens. All right, we'll stick with that. Now in these I'm going to make the lines bigger. That's kind of what I meant by going bigger, is not these lines that are so close together, but making like a larger kind of horizontal-ish stripes. Let's see, let's start with this one. And then we'll come, I think I'll make it going this direction. And again, it probably doesn't really matter if you make them going opposite directions or the same. You just get a little different look. Let's start up here. Just seems more natural. Again, like I was saying, sometimes it's easier to do on one side or the other. I have something about it. It just feels right. I don't know. I suppose that has to do with being right-handed or left-handed. I really am not sure. And so we did this one, we'll go up, and so this one will go scoop down again. And we'll do our little side ones. All right. Let's see. I think we'll just go to shading, but you know, I think I'm going to actually make these different shades. So I'll just use a pencil to kind of shade the lines a little bit first. And leaving just a little bit of still white space in the middle, so it looks kind of like a highlight. But I want this to kind of be like a zebra stripe kind of fill. And if I filled these all the way in dark, you would kind of lose that, you know, the 3D effect. We're leaving just a little white space in the middle to, you know, make it look like it's curved, and that highlight is what the light's hitting on the very top part. Let's see, let's darken this one. And again, this is going under, so we'll just bring that highlight out there to darken it a little bit. You could use shading to emphasize the kind of shapes too. Like this has, you know, a bigger curve going around. So I'm going to put a little bit more shadow on this side to kind of emphasize that extra curve here. And not anything that's absolutely necessary. Just, you know, if you happen to think about it and you notice a bigger curve at some point, you can just throw that in there. Let's see, I'm going to make this one darker here. And this one. And these, I'm making these decisions just going by, this would be two darker ones really close together if I made that one dark. So I'm going to make this one dark and these two light. Just to kind of, you know, break that up a little bit so you don't have two big bands of dark next to each other. But all in all, it wouldn't really matter in the end. It would look just as good if you put them next to each other. Okay, so coming to the end of filling these in. Now before I actually start using my blender, I'm going to just run just a little pencil line around the edges. This is a lot of pencil in these shaded lines, so that'll, you know, we can blend that out a lot of places. But we still want to put shadows where, you know, where this goes, going behind, in this corner here, and where the whole thing is going behind the other ones. And emphasizing the shape. So in these corners here, I put a little shadow. Kind of emphasize the shape, round it up here. And this, I'm putting a line down. You can't really see it right now. It's just enough lead to when I use the blending stump, it'll, blend out. But just as line itself, it's hard to see. I'm really just tracing over the ink lines with the pencil. I'm going to shade these a little bit more in here since they're going behind that. And then on this one, all right, so let's see, let's get a blending step. And where are we going to start? Doesn't matter. And again, make sure you don't fill all the way in. Have a little bit of highlight on there to kind of emphasize the shape, the rounded shape of this. I'm going to go and fill these sort of colored lines in first and then go back and do a highlighting of the entire thing. See, and I put enough pencil mark down on here that when blending it, it really brings it in. You don't have to cover the entire thing with lead, with pencil mark. If you make it dark enough in one area, that will blend out a long ways. Cool. So much, in fact, that it will blend out that you want to be careful, because it would be easy for me to just kind of cover this whole area up with dark. So you want to make sure you just avoid that, or just very, very lightly go over it. Because if I just scrub the whole thing, it would just be completely dark, and which is fine, but you're just gonna, like not get as much of a emphasis of the shape as if you would if you left a little highlight there. But with a softer pencil, like an HB or a number 2 is basically what an HB is, or a 2B or softer. And softer means lead. The softer the lead is, the darker it will go down. And the softer it is, so it will spread out more when you blend it. So when you have the softer lead, it blends really easily, and it'll be easy to cover up a whole area. So then you would, need to put less pencil mark down to start with, because you don't need to work so hard to blend it out. Okay, I have all the darker lines done, so then I'm just going to go back and just do the shading for the shapes. And there's a lot of lead down, so this is going to be easy. I just go over these areas a little bit where we want the shadows to be. And this kind of, you can say what the difference between shading and shadows is too. Like a shadow is actually a shadow. Like this one's on top, so it's casting a shadow onto that one. When you do this kind of, just emphasizing shapes and things like that. I mean, technically there's shadows also, but you think of that more as shading. I'm shading the shape to emphasize it somehow. See how when I put those shadows in there, it really makes it feel a lot more kind of caved in there. And this one too, it kind of looks a little bit flat, but as soon as we add that shading in there, it really brings out that shape. Makes it look even more curvy. Focus on this a little bit because it's going behind there. Just want that like extra kind of shadow going there. There we go. And this, I'm going to do this shadow straight across here. So this is going across all three of those. I'm just going to kind of blend those through at once, just as a general blending. And then I'm going to go with each individual one and kind of go with the shape. Bring that shading or the shadow around to emphasize the shape. These are smaller little areas here too, so it's hard to keep so much of the highlights and the different detail going on. You're getting just a lot more shadow than you are on the bigger shapes. And just by kind of going over with the blender a little bit more, the more you blend it, for some reason, the darker, unless you're spreading that lead out a lot, then it doesn't do that. But just going over the same area on that lead, it will seem to get darker and darker. So if you need to emphasize a little bit more, just kind of keep blending it for a little bit longer. And there we go. So let's just finish the little shading on this shape. And we have our next Cuddles variation. Is that cool? That looks really cool. I love how it's just all like organic and ooey gooey kind of look. Okay, next one we are going to do, and forgive me, my paper's gonna be wobbly. I will probably just cut this part out of the video. Okay. Next one we're gonna do, I think, is kind of cool. Changes it up quite a bit to almost another Zentangle, really, but you know, we can think of it as a variation on this. We're going to keep these lines, instead of undulating like this, we're going to keep them more straight and just really overlap them a lot. And I think doing this, it looks a lot like birch tree trunks. See, I'm doing the kind of just like, you know, the lines just next to each other, just like I did these. They're just not curvy, they're just straight. And I'm keeping these kind of skinny because I just want to emphasize the sort of birch tree look. Birch tree trunks are mostly on the skinny side. We'll just stick with that much, so it'll look like a little copse of birch trees there. But I'm still going to keep the lines curved, but I'm going to make these go all one direction, so it looks like you're looking at all the trees at the same way. And they're not undulating like if you go up and down with the marks. These are all going to be going the same direction. But we're going to vary them quite a bit. And I mean, birch tree lines don't necessarily go all the way across, but we're not really making birch trees in particular. We're just getting that kind of a look. So we're still going to keep the pattern kind of the same. And again, it's really in these times of doing these little repeated lines that it's easy to start being sloppy. So you really want to try to refocus yourself every once in a while to, putting your line down with intent. You're purposefully putting each line down. You're thinking about where you're starting and where you're ending, where the line is in relation to the next one. Not going too fast or being too sloppy. These little pieces that are kind of, going behind, I'm not going to make those lines really curvy because you want to kind of get that feeling that that is actually a bigger branch that's going behind there instead of a little skinny one that's just, shoved on the side. So you're making just the end of, like if this branch was, can't even see that at all. If this branch was cut in half and you only saw this part of it, those lines wouldn't be super curvy. They'd just be kind of a curve that is finished off on the part that you can't see. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense. So that's why I'm making these lines a little less curvy, because really they're just sort of the ends of the whole line you don't see that's hidden behind the other trunks. A lot of times you'll do things that you're like, man, I wish I'd have done that differently. Like on this one that I was just talking about, this little one, all these lines are spaced pretty equally apart. And I was trying not to do that. See, I like them varied and the distances between them being varied. But you know what? It's perfectly fine. When it's all shaded and nice, you're not even going to even notice that. And again, that's about using a pen, so you just have to go with it. Like if that would have been a pencil, I would have been very tempted to erase those and make them spaced a little bit differently. But it's pen, it's there, no going back. You learn to live with it, which helps you in a lot of areas, is not being a perfectionist, just learning to be happy with what you have or what you've done, incorporate it into your design or your life, cover it up somehow if that's what needs to be done, and move on. It's really hard to do for a lot of us. It's really hard to do for me. I'm a little bit of a perfectionist. So doing Zentangle has really helped me kind of, let go in all of my art and just, well, that line, it turned out kind of crooked, but fine. It's a little crooked. It's a crooked line. It works. Instead of obsessing about every single line being perfect. Because at some point, if you are obsessing about every single thing being perfect, you're just never going to get anything done. You're just going to keep correcting and keep going over and keep doing it again and never actually finish anything. Again, these little tiny lines, I'm going to really focus on making each one with intention. Because in our kind of impatient, hurried lives, we just feel like, let me just do them really quick and get it done. It's not significant, it's just a little part of the design, just a little tree. Just hurry up and get those lines done so we can get onto the bigger ones. And because we're making the lines curved in this, we're getting kind of more of a sense of a rounded tree trunk than if we were making the lines straight, and they would just sort of look more flat. One more tree trunk, slow down, Deb. I know we're almost done, but don't get sloppy. And believe me, it's hard sometimes to keep focused on making your lines with intention and keeping in the focus of the drawing instead of just hurrying and throwing down the lines as quick as you can to get it over with. This is a lot of little lines I just put down on these trees. Good? Is that awesome? And that's not even shaded yet. Let's see. So we're going to do the shading. And this is basically, we're going to do the sides to emphasize the, the roundness of the shapes or the trunks. And we're also going to really shadow, these ones that are going behind. So you want a bit of shadow going back, so it really puts them in the background, like really looks like they're behind the other trees. But in the end, it's a lot of just kind of outlining your lines with pencil. Because that's basically what you're doing, because the shape is like a tube. It's rounded. So each side is going to be the part that's shaded. All right. See, already you can kind of see that shapes coming in and out a little bit in the foreground and the background. And stop every once in a while to like just, you know, give it a good look to see if it's doing what you want. If you've missed any shadowed spots, or if it's being shadowed enough to really get the emphasis that you want. And again, I'm leaving these, you know, these middle part of this light so that it looks highlighted, so it really looks like that's the part that's coming forward and is being hit by the light. And the sides are the part that's rounded and being shadowed a little bit. If I shaded these all just gray, they all just look flat but gray instead of flat but white. And we don't want that. Yeah, let's see, my last tree is going to be really rounded here. Let's do a bit of shadowing on the sides and just bring that in lightly. And the more you vary this shadow from like really dark and then get lighter, 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 lighter to white, the more it's going to look actually rounded like a tube or a trunk. Cool. Is that awesome? So yeah, birch tree trunks or just really cool lines with lots of lines. Again, all of these make really good, you know, filler designs for bigger patterns. Anyway, so this is, again, variations of Cuddle. And this is also, if you remember, one of the, I'll show you one of the patterns that I did on my little fishes. So this one right here is Cuddles. And that's just a basic Cuddles. It's a very small shape, so I just wanted to put a little bit of that, that shape in there as a filler. Okay, all right, great. If you have any questions, let me know, and I will be back soon with another pattern. Bye-bye.